Thank you so much for coming. So nice to see your faces after what was a fun night last night. I still have my tattoo on if anyone else still has their tattoos. I'm Kasey Mazza. I work at Hubspot. I manage a team of analytics engineers. I have been there for about 5 years. I was an analytics engineer myself and switched over to management about 3 years ago. So have seen kind of both sides of the spectrum. And as we're talking about career growth here, I think that's helpful to just know that journey. Before I get into our agenda, I want to tell you about a defining decision of HubSpot in the last 5 years, and this will not be a sales pitch in any way, but I want to kind of share our way of thinking that really applies to career growth as well. So in 2018, HubSpot smashed the traditional customer funnel. So we used to think of sales and marketing as this funnel where you would come in through our marketing pipelines and then you would move into our sales funnels and eventually you would become a customer and then you would just kind of sit there at the bottom and that was the end of your journey. And customers were kind of an afterthought in this model. But in 2018, we introduced the flywheel, and this has customers at the center. So this is a circular motion that just keeps going and going, where we think about customers at every phase and we think about customers obsessively. So funnels lose energy as you put things into them and then they just kind of end. But flywheels are really remarkable at storing and releasing energy. So the way that they work is really dependent on how fast you spin it, how much it weighs, you know, the whole structure of the flywheel, how much friction is there. But in general, when you spin it, it will start spinning. So in this session, we are going to do the same with your career path. You are not going to hear anything remarkable or groundbreaking today, but you are going to get a framework to think about career growth a little bit differently. So instead of thinking in terms of job titles, where you went traditionally, maybe for this group, from like an analyst to a tech lead to an engineering lead, we're going to think of it more in terms of skills and focus on growth at the center. So thinking about things like, please excuse my poor photoshopping skills here, but communication, technical skills, leadership, those are examples of things we would focus on in this flywheel. And the reason we're doing this is that career growth is not linear. There is no destination, actually. There's no end of your career growth. Maybe retirement, but that's more of an absence of growth than the end of growth, right? So we're just continuing to move along. Your career should be continually iterated upon, and every role that you're in should actually be an input to the next step, so it just keeps going and going. Even if you do a big industry jump or a crazy career jump, if you go from an engineer to being a teacher or a teacher to an engineer, there are skills that transfer across, even though it feels like maybe a little not cyclical, right? So when you're considering your career linearly, you are not thinking about how your skills right now are going to help you in your next role or 3 roles or 5 roles from now. And as you do this, you're kind of collecting skills like Pokemon cards and growing them through the time. The last thing I'll say here is success in this framework is just growth. It's learning something about yourself. So it's not getting a new role or getting promoted. It's just learning something new. So that's how we'll define success in this model. Today's agenda is going to look familiar to you if you have ever seen the software development lifecycle. So we are taking that framework and applying it to your career. So we'll start with a plan. This is an important part of how I think about career growth. It has to be intentional and you have to plan for it, and we'll talk about why that's important. You'll analyze that plan. You will design your path. You will implement what you have planned and designed. You will test and integrate what you have implemented, and then you will work into a maintenance phase, and then it just continues all over from the beginning. So why plan your career? Some people just let their career take them, and that's okay, but I think it's important to think about planning your career for long-term success. So a sense of direction and purpose will give you some focus. You'll have accountability and clear accomplishments and clear growth against your milestones, so you'll be able to know when you're growing. I think this is really important for the imposter syndrome crowd. You'll know that you've made progress and you can't be so hard on yourself. It ensures continuous growth and learning. This next bullet I think is one of the most important ones. You can seize opportunities quickly without being impulsive. So when you know what you're working towards and a project comes up or a job comes up, that you know this works towards your growth path and your goals, you can quickly say yes or no, and you don't have to do this big pros and cons list and go through the whole process. So I think that one's really important. And last but not least, a fulfilling, engaging, and appropriately challenging career leads to a happy and rewarding life. So we want you to be challenged, we don't want you to be bored, but we don't want you to be burnt out. The TLDR here is to control your career or someone else will. If you have been in a position where you aren't sure what you're doing and you maybe have a manager who's just putting you on projects that they need you on, or you're moving teams a lot, this is where you need to stand up and advocate for yourself. Okay, one more thing before we dive in. This is a lot of build-up. I'm going to use examples from my own career to demonstrate the methodology as we go. So I'm going to set the scene for you a little bit. And I'm not going to share my career because it's particularly interesting, but it's actually quite boring, I think. And I think it's relatable for a lot of people in this group. It's fairly straightforward. So let me share. So the year is 2019. I have about 2 years of analytics engineering experience at this point, although I don't think I've ever heard that term in the year 2019. My title is data analyst, but I'm doing a lot of analytics engineering work. My background is in statistics. I did an actuarial internship and realized very quickly that that was not for me. Again, skills, growth, that was still successful because I learned it wasn't a path for me. I'm very good at Google and very good at SQL. That's what I know about myself, and I'm trying to figure out how I apply those things. And I have no formal computer science education background. So talking about things like type 2 tables and Kimball freak me out at this point. I've come a long way, but still a little scary. Our leadership team is advocating for the creation of a data science team. So I work on a customer success operations team. Hubspot as a company has a data science team that creates data science products for our customers, but we're starting to think about how do we build data science products for our reps and internally to make ourselves more efficient. That's kind of where we're at in the year 2019. So here's what you can expect for the rest of the session. You're going to see 6 slides that look exactly like this. On the left-hand side, you will have the stage of the software development lifecycle. At the top, we'll have the main question to answer for that stage. On the left-hand side, I'll give you the questions and the process for the software process. I think most people are probably familiar with that, so that will help you to kind of orient. And then on the right-hand side, we'll give you questions for career growth. I'm happy to share these slides, DBT, Slack, LinkedIn, wherever you want to find me, so you don't need to take feverish notes, but you're welcome to. And then in the next 20 minutes, you will have a clear guide on how to level up your career and clear steps to take. So hang on to your hats, and here we go. We're going to start with planning, as we always do. And here, the question you want to ask yourself are, what are the current problems? So if you were building software, you would be asking yourself questions like, what are the deficiencies in our current system? You're getting input from your stakeholders. You're learning the strengths and weaknesses of your current system or processes. And the overall goal here is just to improve the system. On the career side, we're thinking about what are your favorite parts of your current role, what are your least favorite parts of your current role, and what do your stakeholders think is your superpower. So you're really kind of just taking a step back to evaluate and plan what the future will look like. If you don't know what the favorite parts and least favorite parts of your job are, what are you not doing every day? What's at the bottom of your to-do list that you're not checking off? Those are probably your least favorite things. And what are the things that you get energized and kind of like lose track of time when you're working on? Those are your favorites. So here's my example. Again, the year is 2019. I love solving big problems. I'm energized by finding creative solutions. So I love when someone gives me a problem. Our tech stack at this point is Looker. I love when someone gives me a problem that they're like, I want to see this report, and Looker says, no, thank you, and I can find a creative way to make that happen. I don't like when the task or goal is unclear. So I'm very nervous and uncomfortable with an ambiguous problem statement, and I don't do well when I don't have a clear definition of success. My stakeholders say, and this is a direct quote, my superpower is enabling them to solve big challenges in a friendly but humble way, and they learn something new every time we have an interaction. And at the time, I focused on probably the first part of that because that's what I was doing and that's what I was enjoying. But over time, I actually came to adopt the second part of that too, and I'll talk through that today. Our next phase is analysis. So this is where we think about what do we actually want. So we kind of understand the lay of the land, we know how we're feeling, we know what we like and don't like, and now we start to think about what we want. So in software, we would think about the risks of a potential path forward and then provide a plan to soften those risks. This on the career side, you're starting to think about what do you want to learn. So are there specific skills? Are there specific industries? Are there specific technologies? Are you really excited to learn Python? Are there specific people whose job that you would be interested in having or you think that the work they're doing is interesting? What are the different ways you could learn the things you've identified? And then is there any risk in learning in each learning option? Generally, the answer is no on this one. The only risk I generally see is taking time away from your current job function. It's a little bit of a risk, but that's something you can work through with either a manager or whatever kind of situation you're in. So my example here is that I'm very interested in the world of data science. I had just finished my master's program, which was business analytics, but it was very data science heavy. So I had got a lot of academic exposure to this part of the world, and I thought it was really interesting, but I had no actual application of that work. So I'm not sure if that will be for me. And my leadership team is putting a lot of emphasis on data science as a future of our team. So I'm trying to think a little bit strategically about what interests me and what does the business value, and trying to kind of orient around that. I'm also interested in mentoring more people. So this is something I've realized I get a lot of energy from. I really love spending time with the new members of our team. I'm running Looker training for all of our new analysts across Hubspot, something I really enjoy doing. So I'm going to work with my manager to find options to explore both of these paths. If your manager is not someone who is in the position to help you, maybe you don't have a manager, I've been there, that's something where you can go out and find your own mentors and find projects across your business or other industries, networking events like this, where you can kind of start to find new opportunities. So at this point, we are looking for project-sized things. We're not quitting our jobs and picking up something new. We're just gonna dip our toes in the water a little bit. So the third phase here is design, and this is how we'll get what we want. So in software, we're turning software specifications into a design plan, and we're having our stakeholders review, give us feedback, and give us suggestions on what they'd like to see. And then on the career growth side, we're starting to think about those specific projects or maybe courses that you can take that get you back to those skills that you were hoping to work towards. And then the other thing here is that who do you know who could help you get exposure to those things? So again, seeking out mentors, seeking out other people who are doing the things that you think look interesting. So my example at this stage is I start to take on 2 new mentors. My manager has shared a new initiative to use data science to help our reps be more efficient. So I'm working on both of these things in tandem. You do not always need to do multiple skills at once. You can do 1, you can do 5. Wouldn't recommend 5. But trying something new does not have to be like a linear start and stop thing, and it doesn't need to be on a fixed timeline. So I will lead our data science project with support from our 1 data scientist that we have. We have a lot of goals with data science, and we have 1 resource. So I'm adding value to the business and being able to take on this project, and I'm also learning from him along the way. And then I have identified both people leaders and data science leaders who will kind of mentor me in both of these areas. One thing here is I keep my mentorship relationships finite. So I always set an end date on those, whether, for my new hires when they're onboarding, it's usually 6 to 8 weeks. For myself, I usually try for 6 to 8 months. I'm looking at those with a specific goal in mind. Anything beyond that to me is a friendship, and it doesn't need to have a specific meeting cadence. Our next stage is implementation. This is where we have no questions and we just develop. So this is, again, where development begins on the software side. And the one thing here is just to make sure you have proper guidelines in place. So whether this is code styles or best practices, this is how we're thinking about development and implementation. And then on the career growth side, this is where your learning project begins. And the one thing I'll say here is to make sure you have a clear definition of success. So it's that 6-month mentor window. My data science project was a very clear go or no-go decision, and I'll talk through that in just a second. So the goal of my project is to determine whether the problem is a good candidate for a data science model. So I have the data sets, I have the problem statement, and now we're trying to figure out, is this a good use of data science resources? So I'm building some models to test this as I go, but I'm not building a full data science pipeline and model. I'm just kind of testing the waters and then working with our data scientists to actually, if it was a good candidate, we would implement. And it wasn't actually, but that was still successful because we learned something about our model. And then the goals of my mentor relationships are their individual success, but positive feedback from them and their manager that the relationship was beneficial and that they learned something. Our last phase, or our second to last phase here, is testing and integration. And this is where we kind of start to reflect and say, did we get what we wanted? So we're testing for defects and deficiencies in our software, and we're starting to deploy software to production for other people to use. On the career side, we are reflecting on the project. So did it feel like a good fit? Were there parts that you didn't like? Did you get to flex your superpowers or discover new ones along the way? Did you discover a new thing that you hate doing? And that's okay. And did you have fun along the way? So ultimately, this is like a go or no-go decision. So think about this as kind of like you, for the people who are in person, you walked down this hallway and there are maybe 5 different conference rooms, right? One of those conference rooms was data science, one of those conference rooms was mentorship, and you're standing at the door and you're trying to decide, is this room a good fit for me? And ultimately, you're opening or closing the door. If you open the door, you came into this room, mentorship was a good fit. There are all these seats, and think of these seats as paths that you could take. So the paths are kind of endless, but they're just helping you to get down and kind of navigate through to figure out what the next set of paths will be. So it's all kind of like a bit of a spiral through, but basically your options for paths are always changing, and you're just kind of changing the branches as you go by deciding what you like and what you don't like. So the data science project was awful. I really did not have fun. It was the most important thing. I discovered a lot of things I hated. But if you think back to the beginning where I said I don't like ambiguous problem statements or ambiguous definitions of success, this amplified that in a pretty big way. I don't like a problem that doesn't have a clear answer, and a lot of times that's what data science is. So that was something I learned about myself, and I'm happy I did it on a project basis, and I didn't take on a data science role and then be like, oh no, what have I done? So that was a good opportunity for me to learn. And then data science, that door is closed for me. I could open it again if I wanted, but it's not something that I'm interested in pursuing right now. But I loved the mentor relationships. Those were really thriving. I was getting good feedback, and shortly after this, I moved over into a management role. So our last phase is maintenance, and then of course we go back to plan. So remember, this is a flywheel. But our question here is, how could this be better? So with software, your reality never perfectly matches your plan. You've changed things along the way. There's maybe been some scope creep. So you want to get closer to what you want, and then continue to update and advance your software as real world conditions change, as technology changes, as the market changes, as your business changes. On the career growth side, we are reflecting on your career regularly. So my team uses Asana as our project management tool, and I have a recurring task on the first of every month to review my career goals. And I ask myself these 4 questions. Did you accomplish the goals you set last month? What else did you accomplish? What do you want to accomplish this month? And what ideas do you have to improve your team or your company? This is just a Google Doc for myself. I don't share this with anyone. Sometimes I share my takeaways with my manager or my team, but this doc is my own to hold myself accountable in. And there's no pressure to accomplish the things that I set, except the pressure I put on myself, and a little bit of self-discipline there. What's important here is to notice trends, particularly in what you're accomplishing, what you're not accomplishing, and your improvement ideas. So use these to start your next phase of planning and say, what am I gravitating towards, what's interesting to me, and then what can you incorporate into your next set of plans. So I'll give you an example here. I've been doing this for a couple of years, but this year I set a goal at the beginning of the year to take the DBT certification. And every single month, it was like study for DBT, not even pass, just study. And it was showing up every month is something I did not accomplish, didn't even think about accomplishing. So I kind of had to have this conversation with myself of like, either take it off the list or commit to it, like lean in or lean out. And I leaned in and I passed on Tuesday, so that's exciting. But it was on the list since January, and I didn't take it seriously until September. So it's something that you need to hold yourself accountable to and start to notice, like, why am I not doing this? The answer was I was a little bit stressed and didn't have the time, and then I made the time and prioritized it. So paying attention to your own trends and where your energy is, really thriving can help you to plan for the next cycle and beyond. So this is our founder and former CEO, Brian Halligan, with our flywheel when we introduced it at our inbound conference in 2018. This hangs in the headquarters of Hubspot. It's something that's very near and dear to us. But once you're done, you start again, and it's a flywheel, and you just keep going. So your career has infinite potential paths, and you continually refine the paths that you choose by finding which skills that you're liking, which you're not liking, and then you continue to move forward. As a reminder, your career is a journey and there is no destination. I want to make this very clear. You're not working towards something, so take some of that pressure off yourself. Every day is a new day to learn something, but you don't need to put so much pressure to get to a destination. I will say that Tristan, the CEO of DBT Labs, challenged me on this a little bit yesterday. So I'll share this here. He shared that this comes from a little bit of a place of privilege, to not have to think about career growth or the finances behind that. So I don't want you to not think about, your career growth in terms of titles or salary. Those things are important. I'm not encouraging you to just quit and pursue all kinds of skills without thinking about everything around that, right? But focus on the skills first, and in my experience, the growth in career and title will come. So I appreciated that call out. I want to make it clear to this group too. So keep learning, keep trying new things. Failure is impossible with this model. So again, take some of that pressure off, because either you succeed and you have career growth, or you learn something new and you shift sideways a little bit. So either way, you're succeeding there. That is all that I have. Would love to connect on Twitter, LinkedIn, or I'm in the DBT Slack, and happy to take any questions. I have about 8 minutes. Thank you. Excellent. Thanks, y'all, for coming. And if you want the slides, please just shoot me a note. I'm happy to share them. Thank you.